You've been chasing people your whole life, and you never once stopped to ask what they were actually chasing when they looked at you. You thought it was you. Your personality. Your mind. Your soul. It wasn't. It was never you. It was the feeling you triggered in them the moment you walked into the room. The sense of importance. The rush of being desired. The temporary silence of their own inner emptiness. You were never the prize. You were the drug. And the moment the high wore off, they started looking for the next fix, and you stood there confused, wondering what you did wrong. You did nothing wrong. You just never understood the game that was being played on you. Every person who has ever pursued you, clung to you, obsessed over you, or suddenly lost interest in you was running the same invisible program. They weren't responding to who you are. They were responding to what you made them feel about themselves. And that distinction, that razor-thin line between wanting you and wanting the feeling you give them, is the single most important thing you will ever understand about human relationships. Because once you see it, you can never unsee it. And once you can never unsee it, you stop being the one who gets played. You become the one who owns the board. That is the ruthless art Machiavelli perfected. And today, it is yours. Here are 7 dark truths about what people are really extracting from you, and how to flip the entire dynamic so you become the orchestrator instead of the supply. Number 1. Everyone walks around with a hole inside them, and they are looking for someone to fill it. This is the first thing you have to understand, and it will reframe every interaction you have ever had. People do not pursue relationships because they are whole. They pursue relationships because they are incomplete. There is a void in every person: loneliness, boredom, a sense of inadequacy, a hunger for validation, a desperate need to feel chosen. Most people hide this void well. They present a polished surface. They look content. They look put together. But underneath that surface, there is a quiet desperation that drives almost everything they do. They will never tell you about this void directly. They might not even know it exists. But it is there, and it is the single most powerful force in their life. When someone is drawn to you, what they are actually drawn to is the possibility that you might fill that void. You represent something they are missing. If they are lonely, you represent company. If they feel unimportant, you represent attention. If they feel undesired, you represent desire. If they feel ordinary, you represent excitement. They are not interested in you as a person. They are interested in you as a solution. And this is where most people make their first fatal mistake. They try to be interesting. They try to be attractive. They try to be impressive. They perform. They posture. They present the best version of themselves, hoping to be chosen. But the person who understands the game does something completely different. They do not try to be impressive. They look for the void. They study the person in front of them. They watch for the cracks. What does this person complain about? What do they light up over? What do they reach for but never quite grasp? What makes them feel small? What makes them feel alive? The void is always visible if you know where to look. And once you see it, you do not need to be the most attractive person in the room. You do not need to be the smartest, the richest, the most charismatic. You simply need to be the person who can fill that specific void better than anyone else. That is how seduction actually works. Not through charm. Not through looks. Not through confidence. Through precision. Through identifying the exact shape of someone's emptiness and becoming the only thing that fits it. Think about every person who has ever been obsessed with you. What were they actually obsessed with? Were they obsessed with your thoughts, your values, your dreams? Or were they obsessed with how you made them feel? The attention you gave them? The validation you provided? The way you looked at them like they mattered? They were not in love with you. They were in love with the version of themselves that existed when you were around. And the moment you stopped providing that feeling, the moment you became distracted, distant, or unavailable, they did not miss you. They missed the feeling. And if someone else could provide that same feeling, they would move on without hesitation. This is not cynicism. This is mechanics. And if you do not understand the mechanics, you will spend your entire life being the supply for other people's emotional needs without ever realizing it. Number 2. They mirror your spirit because that is how they extract what they need from you. Have you ever met someone who seemed to understand you perfectly? Someone who shared your values, your sense of humor, your worldview, your deepest interests. Someone who made you feel seen in a way that almost no one else ever has? It felt like destiny. It felt like connection. It felt like finally finding someone who gets you. Here is what was actually happening. They were entering your spirit. They were studying your worldview, adopting your language, mirroring your psychology, and reflecting back to you the version of yourself you most want to believe in. They were not showing you who they are. They were showing you who you are, or at least, who you wish you were. And in doing so, they were creating a bond that feels unbreakable but is actually built on a fundamental illusion. This is one of the most powerful techniques in the entire playbook of human influence, and it works because of a simple truth about human psychology. People do not fall in love with other people. They fall in love with how other people make them feel about themselves. And the most efficient way to make someone feel extraordinary is to reflect back to them their own ideal self-image. When someone mirrors your spirit, you do not experience it as manipulation. You experience it as connection. You experience it as being understood. You experience it as the rare and beautiful thing that happens when two souls align. But what is actually happening is that this person has identified what you need to feel, understood, validated, important, special, and they are providing it with surgical precision. They are not doing this for you. They are doing this for themselves. Because once you feel understood, you lower your guard. Once you feel seen, you become vulnerable. Once you feel like this person is your mirror, you begin to trust them with parts of yourself you normally protect. And that is the moment they have you. That is the moment you become the supply. Now here is the dark part. Most people who do this are not doing it consciously. They are not sitting in a dark room plotting your emotional extraction. They have simply learned, through years of social conditioning, that mirroring works. They have learned that if you adopt someone's language, reflect their values, and make them feel understood, they will give you what you want. Whether what you want is attention, commitment, sex, loyalty, or simply the feeling of being needed. The game is happening whether anyone is conscious of it or not. And if you are the one being mirrored, you are the one being played. But if you understand this dynamic, you can flip it. You can start to notice when someone is mirroring you. You can start to ask yourself, is this person genuinely aligned with me, or are they reflecting my spirit back to me because that is how they get what they need? And more importantly, you can start to use this technique yourself. Not to manipulate people for petty reasons, but to understand them so deeply that you can see the game before it is played on you. You become the one who enters spirits. You become the one who reads the room. You become the person who understands what everyone needs before they say a word. And once you can do that, you are no longer the pawn. You are the one who moves the pieces. Number 3. Every social interaction is a transaction, and every transaction has a concealed motive. This is the truth that most people find uncomfortable, but that will change your life forever if you accept it. There is no such thing as a purely selfless social interaction. Every conversation, every favor, every compliment, every act of kindness, every text message, every invitation is a transaction. And every transaction has a payoff. The payoff is not always obvious. Sometimes the payoff is attention. Sometimes it is validation. Sometimes it is the feeling of being needed. Sometimes it is the avoidance of feeling alone. Sometimes it is the accumulation of social debt that can be called in later. But there is always a payoff. And the person who understands this is the person who never gets blindsided. Think about the people in your life right now. The friend who always calls you when they are going through a crisis but is mysteriously unavailable when you need support. What is the payoff? They get to feel important. They get to be the center of your attention. They get to experience the drama of their own life as something worthy of your concern. You are not their friend. You are their audience. Think about the person who is always generous, always giving, always helping. What is the payoff? They get to feel virtuous. They get to accumulate obligation. They get to be the person who is needed, which gives them power. Their generosity is not selfless. It is a strategy for maintaining a position of superiority in the relationship. Think about the person who is always agreeable, always supportive, always on your side. What is the payoff? They get to avoid conflict. They get to be liked. They get to maintain access to you without ever having to risk being rejected for their real opinions. Their agreeableness is not kindness. It is cowardice dressed up as loyalty. Every single person in your life is playing a game. The games have different names and different rules, but they all share one structure. There is a surface interaction, what appears to be happening, and there is a concealed motive, what is actually happening. The surface interaction is the conversation, the favor, the compliment, the gesture of friendship. The concealed motive is the emotional payoff that the person is extracting from the interaction. And here is the thing that will hit you like a freight train if you let it. You are playing games too. You have your own patterns. Your own payoffs. Your own concealed motives. You might be the person who always helps others because it makes you feel important. You might be the person who always plays the victim because it gives you an excuse for why your life is not where you want it to be. You might be the person who always gives advice because it lets you feel superior. You might be the person who is always strong because you are terrified that if you show weakness, no one will stick around. These are games. And they are costing you everything. They are costing you genuine connection. They are costing you authentic intimacy. They are costing you the ability to be seen for who you actually are rather than for the role you play in other people's emotional economies. Because here is the brutal truth. As long as you are playing a game, you will never be truly known. You will be recognized for your function, not for your essence. People will value you for what you provide, not for who you are. And the moment you stop providing, the moment you stop playing your role, the people who seemed so devoted will show you what they were really there for all along. The cost of the game is your own humanity. Every time you play a role instead of being real, you trade a piece of your soul for a payoff that will never satisfy you. You get the validation but you feel empty. You get the attention but you feel invisible. You get the approval but you feel fundamentally alone. Because the approval is not for you. It is for the character you are playing. And deep down, you know this. You have always known this. You just never had the framework to name it. Now you do. Number 4. You are already playing an archetype, and you do not even know it. This is the one that will make you uncomfortable. You think you are being yourself. You think your personality is natural, organic, authentically you. But you have been cast in a role since the day you were born, and you have been performing that role so long that you have forgotten it is a performance. There are a finite number of archetypes that human beings are drawn to, and you have unconsciously adopted one. Maybe you are the one who takes care of everyone. The one who always has it together. The one who makes people feel safe. That is a seduction archetype. You are playing the protector, the provider, the steady presence that people run to when their world is shaking. And it works. People are drawn to you. They need you. They cling to you. But what they are drawn to is not you. It is the archetype. It is the feeling of safety that the protector provides. If you stopped being the protector, if you showed vulnerability, if you needed something, if you let your own world shake, most of those people would disappear. Not because they are evil. But because they were never there for you. They were there for what you provided. Maybe you are the one who is always exciting, always alive, always pushing boundaries. You are the one who makes people feel like anything is possible. That is a seduction archetype too. You are playing the liberator, the one who offers escape from the mundane. And people are drawn to you like moths to a flame. But they are not drawn to you. They are drawn to the feeling of freedom you provide. The moment you become ordinary, the moment you need stability, the moment you ask for something quiet and reliable, they lose interest. Because you were never the point. The feeling was the point. Maybe you are the one who is always slightly out of reach. You are warm, then cold. Present, then absent. You give people just enough to keep them hooked but never enough to satisfy them. You might think this is just your personality. It is not. It is an archetype. And it is the most powerful one of all. Because the person who is never fully available creates a hunger in other people that borders on obsession. They do not want you. They want the feeling of almost having you. The feeling of being close but never quite close enough. That feeling is a drug. And you are the dealer. Here is what you need to understand. There is nothing wrong with playing an archetype. The most influential people in history were all playing one. But the difference between being played by your archetype and wielding it is consciousness. If you do not know what archetype you are playing, you are a puppet. Your archetype is controlling you. It is driving your behavior, shaping your relationships, and determining who is drawn to you. You are performing a role without understanding the script. But if you know what archetype you are playing, you can choose when to deploy it and when to drop it. You can use it strategically. You can amplify it when you need to attract, and you can set it down when you need to protect yourself. You become the author of the character instead of the character itself. And that is where real power begins. The moment you can see your own archetype clearly, you also become able to see everyone else's. You start to recognize the patterns. The person who always plays the victim. The person who always plays the hero. The person who always plays the rebel. The person who always plays the saint. And once you can see the archetypes, you can predict behavior. You can see what people need before they ask for it. You can see what they are extracting from every interaction. You can see the game. And the person who sees the game is the person who controls it. Number 5. There is a difference between genuine connection and engineered dependency, and if you cannot tell the difference, you will spend your life in a cage you helped build. This is the one that destroys people. They fall in love. They feel connected. They feel like they have found something real. And slowly, gradually, without ever noticing it, they become dependent. Not on the person. On the feeling. The connection was real, but it was also engineered. Not maliciously. Not consciously. But engineered nonetheless. Here is how it works. Someone enters your life and they provide something you have been missing. Attention. Validation. Excitement. A sense of being understood. At first, it feels like a gift. Something freely given. But over time, something shifts. You start to need it. You start to structure your day around when you will get your next dose. You start to feel anxious when the supply is interrupted. You start to change your behavior to ensure the supply continues. You become more agreeable, more accommodating, more of whatever they need you to be. And without realizing it, you have traded your autonomy for access to a feeling. This is engineered dependency. And the terrifying thing is that it does not require a mastermind. Most people who create dependency in others are doing it unconsciously. They have learned, through trial and error, that being needed gives them power. That being the source of someone's emotional sustenance means they will never be abandoned. So they provide. And they withhold. They provide. And they withhold. This rhythm, the alternation of presence and absence, warmth and coldness, availability and withdrawal, is the engine of dependency. It is how you make someone need you. And it is how someone makes you need them. Genuine connection is completely different. Genuine connection does not require the alternation of presence and absence. It does not depend on the strategic withholding of affection. It does not create anxiety when it is temporarily unavailable. Genuine connection is steady. It is reliable. It is boring in the best possible way. It does not make you feel high. It makes you feel grounded. Here is the test. When this person is not around, do you feel anxious or do you feel secure? If you feel anxious, you are not in a genuine connection. You are in a dependency. You are addicted to a feeling, and the person is just the delivery system. When this person gives you attention, do you feel relief or do you feel joy? If you feel relief, that is withdrawal being soothed. That is addiction, not love. When this person pulls away, do you feel fear or do you feel trust? If you feel fear, you are in a cage. The bars are invisible, but they are there. And you helped build them. The cost of engineered dependency is your freedom. You give up your autonomy piece by piece, so slowly that you do not notice until one day you realize you cannot function without this person. You cannot make decisions without their approval. You cannot feel good about yourself without their validation. You cannot feel whole without their presence. You have been hollowed out. And the worst part is that you did it to yourself. You walked into the cage because the feeling was too good to resist. But here is the way out. You see the pattern. You name it. You stop feeding it. You tolerate the withdrawal. You sit with the anxiety and you do not reach for the supply. You let the hunger pass. And on the other side of that hunger, you find something that no one can take from you. Your own wholeness. Your own center of gravity. Your own ability to feel complete without anyone else providing the feeling. That is power. That is the stoic composure that Marcus Aurelius embodied. The ability to be untouched by the presence or absence of anyone. Not because you do not care. Because you are not dependent on what they provide. You have become your own source. Number 6. Direct desire triggers resistance. Indirect desire triggers obsession. This is the mechanism behind every chase that has ever consumed you. When someone comes at you directly, with clear, unambiguous desire, what happens? You pull back. You feel pressured. You feel the weight of their expectation. You feel the obligation to respond. And obligation kills desire. This is why the person who is too available, too eager, too clear about their interest almost never gets what they want. Their directness triggers resistance. You feel it. Everyone feels it. The moment someone wants you too openly, something in you recoils. Not because you do not want to be wanted, but because direct desire carries obligation, and obligation is the enemy of freedom. And desire without freedom is not desire. It is compliance. Now think about the opposite. Think about someone who is interested in you but does not show it directly. Someone who is warm but not available. Present but not committed. Friendly but not clearly interested. Someone who gives you just enough attention to make you wonder, but not enough to make you certain. What happens? Your mind starts to work. You start to analyze every interaction. Every word. Every glance. Every silence. You start to look for signs. You start to manufacture meaning from ambiguity. You start to fill in the gaps with your own imagination. And your imagination is far more powerful than any reality could ever be. Because in your imagination, the person becomes everything you want them to be. The ambiguity gives you space to project your desires onto them. And the more you project, the more invested you become. The more invested you become, the more you need resolution. And the more you need resolution, the more you chase. This is not an accident. This is the mechanics of desire. Direct desire triggers resistance because it removes the space for imagination. Indirect desire triggers obsession because it creates that space. The person who understands this does not chase. They do not declare. They do not confess. They create a space. They plant a seed. They let the other person's mind do the work. They understand that the most powerful desire is the desire that the other person generates within themselves. You do not make someone want you. You create the conditions under which they make themselves want you. This is why the most seductive people are rarely the most attractive. They are the most ambiguous. They are the ones who leave you guessing. The ones who make you feel like maybe, possibly, there is something there, but you are never quite sure. That uncertainty is the fuel. That ambiguity is the engine. And the person who controls the ambiguity controls the entire dynamic. Now apply this to your own life. Think about the people who have consumed your thoughts. The ones you could not stop thinking about. The ones who kept you up at night. Were they the ones who were most direct with you? The ones who said I want you, I need you, I am yours? Or were they the ones who kept you in a state of perpetual uncertainty? The ones who made you wonder? The ones who were warm one moment and distant the next? You already know the answer. And now you know why. It was not love. It was not destiny. It was not a deep soul connection. It was the mechanics of indirect desire operating on your psychology with the precision of a machine. And the moment you understand that, you stop being the one who gets consumed. You start being the one who creates the consumption. You become the ambiguity. You become the space. You become the question that someone else cannot stop trying to answer. Number 7. The ultimate power is stepping outside the transaction entirely. Everything I have told you so far is about understanding the game. The voids. The mirroring. The transactions. The archetypes. The dependency. The indirect approach. All of these are tools. All of them are powerful. All of them can be used to protect yourself and to influence others. But there is a level beyond all of this. A level that most people never reach because they are too busy playing the game to see that the game itself is a cage. The ultimate power is not winning the game. The ultimate power is stepping outside it. Here is what that means. As long as you are operating within the transactional structure, you are defined by it. You are either the one who extracts or the one who is extracted from. You are either the seducer or the seduced. You are either the one who needs or the one who is needed. And both positions are traps. The seducer is dependent on their targets. The seduced is dependent on their seducer. The one who needs is controlled by what they need. The one who is needed is controlled by the fear of no longer being needed. Everyone is in the cage. The cage just has different rooms. Stepping outside means something radical. It means you stop needing the game entirely. You stop needing to be desired. You stop needing to be validated. You stop needing to be the one who fills other people's voids. You stop needing to be important. You stop needing to be needed. You become complete within yourself. Not in a self-help, affirmation-chanting way. In a real, structural, bone-deep way. You build your own world. You create your own meaning. You generate your own emotional sustenance. You do not need anyone to provide a feeling for you because you have your own. And when you reach that state, something extraordinary happens. People can sense it. They are drawn to it. They cannot explain why. But there is something about you that is different. Something that is not trying. Something that is not performing. Something that is not extracting. Something that is simply present. And that presence, that untouchable, self-sufficient, complete presence, becomes the most magnetic force in any room you enter. Not because you are playing an archetype. Not because you are deploying a technique. But because you have become something that almost no one ever becomes. You have become free. And freedom is the most seductive quality a human being can possess. Because everyone else is in a cage. And when they see someone who is not, they want to be near them. Not to possess them. Not to extract from them. But to be reminded that the cage has a door. This is what Marcus Aurelius understood. This is what Machiavelli understood at the deepest level. The highest form of power is not the power to control others. It is the power to not need to control anyone. To be so complete, so grounded, so self-sufficient that the entire game of emotional transactions becomes optional. You can still play it. You can still use the tools. You can still read the voids and mirror the spirits and deploy the archetypes and create the indirect desire. But you do it from a position of choice, not need. You are not doing it to fill your own emptiness. You are doing it because you choose to engage. And that choice, that freedom to play or not to play, is what makes you untouchable. Because the person who does not need anything from anyone cannot be controlled. They cannot be manipulated. They cannot be seduced against their will. They see every move before it is made. They see every transaction before it is offered. They see every concealed motive before it is revealed. And they decide, with complete clarity, whether to engage or to walk away. That is power. Not the power to make people do what you want. The power to be unaffected by what anyone does. So let me bring you back to where we started. Every person chasing you is not chasing you. They are chasing the feeling you give them. They have always been chasing the feeling. And they will always be chasing the feeling. This is not a flaw in human nature. It is human nature. The question is not whether people want you or want the feeling. The question is whether you understand the difference. Because if you do not understand the difference, you will spend your entire life performing for people who will never see you. You will contort yourself into shapes designed to trigger feelings in others, and you will call it love, or friendship, or loyalty, when it is actually just supply and demand. You will give yourself away piece by piece, and one day you will look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back at you because you have become everyone else's creation. That is the cost. That is what this pattern has been quietly taking from you your entire life. Not your time. Not your energy. Yourself. The real you. The person you were before you started performing. The person you were before you learned that being needed felt like being loved. The person you were before you discovered that triggering feelings in others gave you a sense of control. That person is still in there. And they are tired of being buried under everyone else's needs. But now you have the map. You know about the voids. You know about the mirroring. You know about the transactions and their concealed payoffs. You know about the archetypes you have been unconsciously playing. You know about the difference between genuine connection and engineered dependency. You know about the power of indirect desire and the danger of direct need. And you know about the space beyond all of it, the space where you stop being a piece on the board and become the one who designs the game. The ruthless art Machiavelli perfected was never about manipulating others. It was about seeing reality so clearly that manipulation becomes unnecessary. When you see the game, you do not need to trick anyone. You simply need to choose whether to play. And that choice, that single, sovereign choice, is what separates the untouchable from everyone else. So here is what you do. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when you feel ready. Right now. Today. Start watching the transactions in your life. Start noticing who is extracting what from whom. Start naming the payoffs. Start identifying the archetypes. Start seeing the voids. And start asking yourself the one question that will change everything. What feeling am I providing, and what is it costing me to provide it? When you can answer that question honestly, you will never be played again. You will walk into any room, any conversation, any relationship with the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you see what others cannot. You will be calm where others are desperate. You will be still where others are frantically performing. You will be free where others are trapped in the cage of their own needs. That is the path. That is the work. And it starts the moment you decide that you are done being the supply and ready to become the source. If you understood what I just told you, if it hit you somewhere deep and uncomfortable, then you are already different from the person you were when you pressed play. You see the game now. You cannot unsee it. So leave a comment. One sentence. I am untouchable. Not because you are arrogant. Because you have decided, in this moment, that you will never again be the one who gets played without knowing the game. That decision, made right now and reinforced every day, is the most dangerous thing about you. And it is the most powerful. The game is over. You own the board.